Hey folks, it's Mark and Bob of Fire Mountain Outdoors. Thanks for joining us today. We have got a table full of goodness.
That we do. Webby Shops is gracious enough to not only send us one, but 4 different optics to try out for the 300 Blackout platform today.
You know, if you are a fan of the AR-15 platform like we are, and a reloader and a hunter, the 300 Blackout round is a dream come true. So having some optics that are dedicated to this round is super awesome. So stay tuned while we check this out. Hey folks, thanks for coming back. You know, we've got 4 optics in front of us. The first one we're going to look at is the Pride Fowler. This one has the RR Evolution bullet drop compensating reticle. It is a 1.5 to 4 power, and this one came in the box complete with rings, complete with the tools to mount the rings, and the very small Allen that's you would use to reset the zeros on the turrets here.
And that has the RGB reticle system on that. That means you've got red, green, and blue.
I gotta say, that's the only blue reticle I've ever seen, ever. So that's kind of interesting. There's some uniqueness there.
Right.
That one comes in at $349.
Right.
This one is the Nikon M-300 BLK. This is the most expensive of the bunch of optics that we have. This one retails for $896, Bob. This one is a 1.5 to 6 power, and it came complete in the box with the instructions and no battery.
And no mounts.
And no mounts, yeah, so it didn't have any mounts. You know, but mounts, that's kind of understandable. I was really disappointed to have a $896 scope with no batteries.
Especially when it's a 30-minute trip to town to go buy said batteries.
Exactly, so good thing I had some. It takes a common 2032 battery, and the reason it has a battery is because it has a bullet drop compensating reticle on it that has the option of being illuminated. So just a 1-color illumination, I believe it's red, and that's that one. The next one is the much more affordable Nikon. This one is the P-300 BLK. The particular model that we have here is the 2 to 7 power. Mm-hmm. It has the same bullet drop compensating reticle as the M-300, but it's not illuminated.
Right.
So it doesn't require any batteries.
And this too did not come with any rings, and of course it did not come with a battery because it's not illuminated.
Right, exactly. They did come complete with cleaning cloth and a manual that tells you how to use the reticle.
Right. Lastly, we have the EoTech. This is their 300 Blackout model. This one is no magnification, illuminated of course. But what it does have is it does have a real nice reticle on that does have the different bullet drop compensating marks on it. And if you ever get confused as to where you need to be shooting, if you're supersonic or suppressed, it's got that information silk screened right into the top of the unit right there. This particular model does have the controls on the back, so if you're using like the EoTech G33 tripler, you're going to want to set that back a little bit further because you're not going to be able to use your controls. This particular model retails from Webby Shops for $509.
So there's a quick overview. Let's look through these individually. All right, folks, here we are. You know, the sun is setting and it is fading fast, so what a better opportunity to test these optics out in the golden hour, where it really means everything to a hunter. And that's the beauty of the 300 Blackout round, is it's perfectly capable of deer hunting here in North America. So we're checking out the Nikon M-300 Black right now. And here we are, we're looking at a target at 25 yards. And we're looking at a target at 50 yards. And we are looking at a target at 100 yards. And we are at 1 power. I do have the dot illuminated. We can change the intensity of the dot by clicking it up clicking it down. You know, one thing I noticed about this dot that was kind of interesting, it kind of distorts when you are not perfectly aligned with the scope. So it's actually a pretty cool reminder to make sure you maintain a consistent spot weld, because when you don't, the dot is elliptical or half moon, half shaped. So there's that. So here we are in 1 power, 1.5 power, I believe, actually. You know, one thing I noticed at that power is quite a bit of distortion going from left to right, almost like a fisheye bubble effect. And for the price of this scope, I was really disappointed to see that. You can see how the ground kind of shifts like you're looking through a marble. That's at the lowest power setting. I wasn't happy to see that. It seems to be less noticeable when we turn it up. So we are at the lowest setting. We're going to turn it up now. And we'll try and restore our sweet spot here. And we'll go with that. You know, just like any scope, the higher the magnification, the more critical your eye relief is. So there we are looking at the targets at 100 yards. We'll come over here and we are looking at the target at 50 yards. And sometimes the camera wants to focus on the crosshair and not the target, and has a hard time jiving between them. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of manual focus. And so the reason we stuck those targets out there is actually a suggestion from the viewer. You know, those targets have some fine black crosshairs, cross hatching on them in 1 MOA increments. So that's kind of a good way to test how clear the scope is, by actually looking at that. And now we're going to move over to 50 yards. And I'm going to do some more focusing. See, I can see the target there, and it kind of compromised between the crosshair. I can't adjust the crosshair anymore. So that little parallax thing kind of goes away the further out you get. So this is the Nikon M-300. This is the RR-E Revolution Black. Now, you know, I was amazed and astounded back and forth 3 different ways, both in excitement and disappointment with this scope. I was excited at first. If we're looking at this scope, I am at the 1 power setting right now, and they actually advertise it as a 1.25. Most scope manufacturers will claim to have a 1 power scope, and it's really 1.25 to 1.5. This is the most amazing and most clear, both eyes open, 1 power scope that I've seen. This is, the clarity on this is better than looking through a red dot. There's no side-to-side distortion. It is perfectly, wonderfully beautiful to look at with both eyes open, with an AR or a rifle and scanning. There is no reason to close one eye. It is just beautiful looking through this thing. After you get done being amazed by the clarity at 1.25 power, then you start to wonder, well, where's my reticle? That's one feature. So this perspective is really kind of what you're going to see with your eye, depending on how hunched up on the optic you are. Now, we're going to zoom in with the camera and I'm going to show you the reticle. And the reticle itself is very, very fine. So you see that? That's very, very hard to detect. Now, the reticle's on the first focal plane, which means when we zoom in, we also zoom in on the reticle. So the cool thing about that is that your bullet drop compensation is the same in all powers. The drawback to this particular scope is that on one power, where we would always have our scope set at when we're initially hunting or in whatever kind of purpose we want to have, we don't want to be fully zoomed in. We want to have it the broadest field of view possible. And this reticle is hard to pick out. Now it is illuminated. We can scroll through the different settings. And it's kind of cool that it has a blue. I've never seen a blue. There's kind of a techno-punk kind of thing going on there that I kind of like. And in low light situations, the different colors might help pick it out, but guess what? That's stuff you got to fiddle with, folks. So if you were actually using this in a hunting situation and going to make a snapshot at 1 power, you could definitely see the critter and you could intuitively guess where 0 is. But if the critter was up against a dark background or something, that can be problematic. So amazed, disappointed, then amazed again when I look at the reticle. Let's go ahead and we're going to look at this 50-yard target, and we're going to zoom in. So we talked about that first focal plane. Now we are zooming in, and we're actually zooming in on the reticle too. So we're going to get some focus going on here, and we're going to focus on the target, and then we're going to adjust the eyepiece as best we can, and I'm at the stops there. But if we look at that reticle, we can see that it's got two hashes. The left side is for subsonic and the right side is for supersonic. So that is some great knowledge to have. There's no kind of having to reference some piece of note or post-it that you duct tape to your stock. We can see that we have those increments right there, ready to go. We'll make it a little bit clearer. We're just going to focus on the reticle, and you can see on the left side we've got those different yardages, and those are for subsonic. And then on the right we got supersonic that goes clear up to 700 yards. And that's great information. I really like that. I just really wish it was easier to see, define, and pick out. All right, folks, now we're looking at the much more inexpensive Nikon, the P-300 BLK. And it is a 2:7 power scope. We're on the lowest setting right now. Actually, we were on the highest setting. We're going to zoom out to 2 power. And there we are. We're looking at a target at 25 yards. If we look at the white background, you can see the reticle pattern, where we have alternating sequences of bubbles and lines. There's quite a few little hatches there. There's also, on the horizontal crossbar, there are some cross hatches. That's the same reticle as on the M-300, which is much more expensive. So this is a 25-yard target. This one is a 50-yard target. There's a 50-yard gong. There is no illuminated reticle on this. And then if we scan over, we're now looking at the 100-yard target. So if we just kind of pan and scan, you know, it's kind of an odd observation, but I noticed much less of a fishbowl effect with this cheaper optic than I did with the M-300. And that's the sort of low light view of the P-300 BLK. Let's check out our new optic, our next one. All right, folks, last but definitely not least is the EoTech. So the EoTech is just stone cold, stupid simple, and that's why you gotta love an EoTech. Here we are. You can see if we look, it's kind of bright right there. Let's find a dark background. You can see the reticle, and we're gonna zoom in and take a peek at it. So what we have is a 2-dot reticle. So that has a dead-on dot and a secondary dot down below it to compensate for bullet drop. And then, of course, you could use the circle and the bottom tip for another hatch to compensate for different ranges. So we are zoomed in. This is a 25-yard target, and we can dial the intensity of that reticle up. We get a little bloom. We can turn it back down. As you can see, it does a lot better up against a darker background than the white target itself. Here we are at the 50-yard target. We're at the 50-yard gong. And here we are at 100 yards. Now, as you can see, if the targets that we were picking out were darker than, say, bad guys wearing black clothing, then the reticle will be a lot easier to pick out. Whereas the dark crosshairs were much easier to use up against a white target, such as this paper target that we have here. So you can see the difference. That's kind of what we give up by giving up magnification. With the 1:6 and 2:7 power scopes, we were able to pick out detail and definition on those targets that are posted up there a lot better. We don't have that with this, but we do have a great field of view. Infinite eye relief. See, it's the same here. If you had to have your weapon outstretched and your eye relief had to go all the heck, you could still use an EoTech where you would have to stay within that window for a typical magnifying optic. So there you go. This is the low light look through the EoTech 300 black optimized. Alright, so we're going to be sighting in each one of these optics. We're using some PNW Arms 147 grain full metal jacket boat tail ammo. This was provided by webbyshops.com. It's got, it looks like good brass. It has their own name and a proper 300 blackout head stamp on it.
Okay. That's
moved it to about center of the frame. Whack! Nice! That's the beauty of 300 Blackout. It's got some energy. Good shoot, Pat. I like it. And my holdover is the second dot down. I have no wind.
Dead center, very bottom. Okay, so that actually worked, Bob.
Well, Bob, that was a delightful and enlightening and educational day of shooting.
And the results were pretty surprising, really.
You know, when we started this review, Bob, I was really hopeful. They talk about the magic bullet. I came into this review wanting to find the magic 300 Blackout scope. And that's really summarized right here in this silk screen. I wanted it to be this stone cold simple. I've got subsonic and I got supersonic. The silk screen is just beautifully simple in that, hey, if you're shooting subs, you zero your weapon at 50 yards and your supers are going to be zeroed at 100 yards. And if you just hold off on this second dot, if you're shooting subs, you would be dead on at 150 yards. And if you were shooting supers, you would be dead on at 300 yards. Because of the diversity of the 300 Blackout round and the bullet weights and the velocities that we shoot, that's what really spawned this niche that we're looking at. There's a bunch of guys like me that are like, hey, I'm shooting different grains, different weights, different speeds. Can you make me an optic that is stone cold simple that I can hold here and hit here, and it's really simple and easy to remember?
Off the shelf, I'm going to tell you, no.
You know, and we found that out today, Bob. I was really disappointed. I was disappointed, but not really. I kind of knew it in the back of my mind, but that's the fact of the matter. The 300 Blackout bullet weights and velocities are so diverse that, one, you need some kind of bullet drop compensating, but second, for your rifle, if you've determined your pet loads for subsonic, where your rifle shoots them and shoots them well, both subsonic and supersonic, it is very unlikely that you're going to find an off-the-shelf thing that is beautifully etched like this or like the Pride Fowler that is going to match what you're shooting.
Right.
That's just the way it is.
Just like algebra, you're going to have x plus y equals z. You know, z could be marked out here, but you have to figure x and y to get to that z, because x and y are not going to match what's here. It's unfortunate because there are too many variables to make it happen. When we were studying the loads on the websites today, because we needed to figure out coefficient and stuff,
sure,
so we could figure out where we were at just to get to where we wanted to be. You start looking at all the different bullet loads. Then you've got the boat tails, the Spitzers, the hollow points. Every one of those throws these off completely.
And here's what we found out, Bob, is even if you did that and you dialed it in, you know, the Nikons, they just have they have hashes and bubbles, and then you have a program that'll dial you in. And so even if you just go off the hashes and bubbles and then use the program and then and make it so, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that that's going to be. You still need, as a shooter, to do your range work and figure out exactly. It all just kind of puts you in the ballpark.
Right. We spent a good hour on the website today figuring out the different bolt weights and stuff, everything we were shooting. P&W Arms made it pretty easy for figuring out the data on this.
Right, but even then, that took some research, Bob. So this load wasn't listed on the Nikon website.
Right.
So then we had to go back to the P&W Arms site, see what their velocities were, and then what their bullet construction was, what their bullet type was, then go back to the calculator and plug it in. There's this. It's stone cold simple. This is what I hoped for. Unfortunately, it's not the way it works. You still got to do your homework and the work. And really, that's going to take a bunch of putting lead downrange and getting to know your weapon with that load and then matching it. So I think that the concept greatly appealed to me as a 300 blackout shooter, that if I could buy this and put it on, I would be super happy, because it would negate all of the work that I would have to do to do what we did. But that's not going to happen. There may be a few instances where people just shoot factory specified stuff, and that's their sweet spot. Say a guy's running Remington. I only run Remington subs and Remington supers, and there may be a scope that's calibrated for that. But the chances of those two things actually intersecting with the third thing, the scope, and working, that's going to be problematic. So I think that people that are looking for the magic 300 blackout bullet, the silver bullet that's going to eliminate having to send a bunch of lead downrange to verify and find their particular application, I think that's a pipe dream.
I'd like to let's thank webbyshops.com for sending us all of these great fine optics today. You know, I think that with any of these optics, they would make somebody very happy. You're just going to have to spend the time to get to know the optic, know where your bullets are going to shoot, take good notes, and go from there.
That's true. And, you know, if you're a 300 black shooter, you don't necessarily have to limit yourself to a 300 black labeled optic. Buy the best glass that you can afford to buy, and get it with some hash marks or mil dots or a range holdover, and spend that time at the range. Because if you think that you're going to be able to just take your pet favorite load and buy one of these optics and it's all going to be sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows and swinging, smacking gongs, you're probably going to be disappointed, and you're going to have to spend the range time anyway. So if you're going to have to spend the range time, and you're going to have to spend the ammo, and you're going to have to spend that time learning whether it says 300 blackout or not, I wouldn't suggest to limit yourself to these. These have a great starting point, but this isn't the end all for 300 black and getting your supers and your subs and your magic little super duper easy thing. That only comes with a bunch of ammo downrange and the notes and the research.
That it does.
So make sure you go to webbyshops.com. Check out these optics there. Check out all of the other optics that are available with mil dots and bullet drop compensating reticles, and pick out the best one that suits your needs as a 300 blackout shooter.
Remember, Webby Shops always has fast, free shipping.
That's right. And excellent customer service after the sale.
All right.
Thanks for watching.